So the EPA is currently under investigation by the U.S. House of Representatives for targeting diesel shops during the Biden administration. It's pretty interesting. I just found out a few days ago, pretty recent news here, so I'm gonna go ahead and cover that. But what does that mean for diesel tuners right now? What does that mean for diesel shops? What does that mean for vehicle aftermarket parts? What does that mean for, I can keep going. What does that mean for the small businesses in America that were targeted, that were fined millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars? Are they gonna see restitution? So we're gonna go ahead and talk about that here in this video. But listen, I want this information to be spread like wildfire. It's pretty new news. The only way that you guys can help me with that is just to hit the like button. It's gonna share the algorithm so everyone can watch this video. So do that for me. I want everyone to know what's going on. And listen, for this news to make any sense to you guys whatsoever, you have to watch this video to its entirety. Watch it from start to finish. Also, I'm giving away my built LBZ Duramax. So if you want to get entered in to win, go to my website, truckmasterdiesel.com. We sell a lot of diesel truck parts for your Duramax, Power Stroke, Cummins. This contest is going to end so quickly. I think we only have like 3 weeks left. So link in the description, comments below, get something, get entered, entries are live. So let's just dive right into this. So basically the U.S. House of Representatives Committee just submitted a letter to the DOJ, Department of Justice, so Pam Bondi, the EPA, which you guys already know who Lee Zeldin is. I've made plenty of YouTube videos about the EPA so far, but they submitted a letter to them about the previous administration's tyrannical consent decrees. And they submitted these decrees to companies, small businesses, not just PPEI, but others, for basically just not playing ball. And I'm sure some of you guys saw the corruption with your own eyes. And I've said this before, this is all political. These companies didn't want to play ball with the left. They didn't want to support Biden's administration. And with that being said, they were bullied during that time. And when I mean bullied by the government, I mean shutting down their companies, being fined, massive layoffs, no way to thrive in this economy. And again, we'll talk about the decree because I don't know how they can thrive when you can't even do your job. It's crazy. I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but let me continue. And I've made several videos about specific diesel shops that were smacked by the EPA, but I want to talk a little bit about the specific company called PPEI. This company has been one of the leading diesel tuning companies in the US, and they've also been making quality tunes. I would go on a limb and say that they're second to none as far as I'm concerned in the industry when it comes to diesel tuning. For many years, not to mention PPEI provided tunes for the military and government vehicles like the presidential vehicle known as the Beast. And this is a hardworking company, and they provide a great service to this country. And its owner, Mr. Corey Willis, who has been a big advocate for us that enjoy the sport of racing, modifying, not only that, simply just finding ways to make our diesel engine run better while maintaining longevity. And look, I've used their tunes personally, and I'm going to tell you right now, their tunes are so clean. Not to mention, I've seen miles per gallon gains with the tunes. So A+ to their company. So I'm going to be referencing an article from The Drive, and they did a really great job covering that. So I'm going to sort of be paraphrasing the article as well, but I'm going to leave that link in the description below if you want to read it a little bit more. There might be some stuff I left out. So let's go ahead and get right into this. So the United States House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is challenging the Environmental Protection Agency and Department of Justice, specifically a letter submitted to the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin and the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi calls into question the organization's regulatory enforcement authority. It mentions the weaponization of tyrannical consent decrees against American companies, including the Louisiana-based truck tuner company PPEI. The committee members also believe that these arrangements are politically motivated to retaliate against businesses and individuals who spoke out against the Biden administration. And just a little bit of background on this company, it's one of the highest profile cases in a string of federal enforcement actions targeting the automotive aftermarket industry. In addition to paying $3.1 million in civil penalties and criminal fines for violating the Clean Air Act, the shop and its owner Corey Willis are required to obtain California Air Resource Board approval for each of its products, despite the company not advertising or selling in California. Why was this company even pushed around when they don't even live in the state of California? CARB, California Air Resources Board. Also the Clean Air Act. This has nothing to do with the state of Louisiana. And I know we just talked about it, but they didn't even sell these products in California. So why is he being caught up in this? In some instance, the federal consent decrees were based on state laws rather than federal laws and regulations. The letter states failing to comply with the requirements, which are often extremely expensive for small businesses, all but ensured DOJ and EPA would force the businesses to close, potentially leaving countless Americans without jobs. CARB is notoriously strict on emission regulations, and under the Clean Air Act, California is allowed to set its requirements independent of federal guidelines. And that's what it says. California is able to set its own requirements separate or independent from the federal guidelines. How's that even possible? So obviously we could see why this whole investigation is being sparked. I'm hoping they can get to the bottom of this really quick. But other convicted automotive aftermarket companies have also signed consent decrees that included the CARB requirements. So it's not just PPEI. This is just an example. This is across the board. So I think that if this investigation comes in favorable to the diesel shops, they're going to see a pretty big return. But the company PPEI was punished for selling hardware and software that allowed diesel trucks to operate with their emissions equipment removed. In court documents, quote PPEI owner Willis as saying that the shop tuned more than 500 vehicles per week with upwards of 100,000 customers, selling well over $1 million in products monthly. And in December 2024, roughly 2.5 years after signing the consent decree in March 2022, Willis was ordered to complete a 3-year probation period as well as 10 months of home detention. Also, this company was entered into a 5-year probationary period. In the subcommittee on federal law enforcement, led by Chairman and the Louisiana Representative Clay Higgins, requests that the DOJ and the EPA provide a staff-level briefing by April 25th to assist with its investigation and oversight. And also the letter asked briefers to explain what's been done to ensure consent decrees are not overly restrictive and leading to costly requirements that harm American businesses and citizens. Also, the committee wants them to ensure the weaponization of overly burdensome regulatory enforcement is not being leveraged related to environmental classes. Now, for this to make any sense to you, I do want to read the letter, the actual letter. I have it right here. I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. And this is from Congress, as you guys can see here. The Congress of the United States House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. So let's just go ahead and read this verbatim. So the Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement is investigating the weaponization of overly burdensome regulatory enforcement against the American people, specifically environmental enforcement actions by the Department of Justice, DOJ, and Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, under the Biden administration. Many American businesses and citizens were the target of politically motivated regulatory enforcement and environmental justice directives, with agencies demanding overly restrictive consent decrees with costly requirements as a condition of terminating litigation. The subcommittee requests information from the DOJ and EPA on the steps being taken to re-examine these tyrannical consent decrees and ensure that DOJ and EPA personnel are enforcing federal, criminal, and civil laws fairly and without political bias. And you guys heard that word, political bias. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Since these American companies didn't want to play ball, they were being biased against these companies. In a sense, they were bullying them. And not only that, it's going to line the politicians' pockets. During the past 4 years, DOJ and EPA weaponized consent decrees to retaliate against businesses and individuals who spoke out against the Biden administration. In some instances, these federal decrees were based on state laws rather than federal laws and regulations. Failing to comply with the requirements, which are often extremely expensive for small businesses, all but ensured DOJ and EPA would force the business to close, potentially leaving countless Americans without jobs. In one case, a consent decree, a seafood processing plant in a small Alaskan town to close, throwing a community out of about 800 people into turmoil. In another case, the federal consent decree placed a costly California state requirement on a company that does not market or sell its product in California. If the company failed to meet the requirement, it could face bankruptcy and closure. Thankfully, President Trump is restoring the freedoms that were stripped away during the past 4 years. For that reason, President Trump directed the DOJ to suspend all new pending environmental litigation and rescind overly burdensome environmental justice directives. Additionally, the president's action halted all pending settlements and consent decrees. Despite this action, countless American businesses and citizens that were forced to enter into Biden-era consent decrees are facing continued enforcement actions by DOJ and EPA, actions which could have detrimental financial and downstream economic impacts. To assist with the subcommittee's investigation and oversight of this matter, I request staff-level briefings from DOJ and EPA by April 25th, 2025. Briefers should at minimum be prepared to address the following. Number one, what is being done to ensure consent decrees related to environmental regulations, which were entered into the Biden administration, are reviewed for overly restrictive and costly requirements that harm American businesses and citizens. And what is being done to ensure the weaponization of overly burdensome regulatory enforcement against the American people, specifying environmental enforcement, is no longer occurring. Now, this is a post from Corey Willis himself on his social media. It says about this topic that we're talking about, especially with him being in the footnotes of this letter. He says, and I quote, "The most important thing I've ever posted. I'm not ashamed to say I'm in tears, thankful. We are one team in this industry, and I have fought with everything I have for the performance industry. This is nothing short of a miracle. God gets the glory. For everyone in the performance industry that were dealt with by the EPA, DOJ, there is hope. Major thank you to Donald J. Trump, Congressman Clay Higgins, House Oversight Committee, Lee Zeldin, Pam Bondi, along with everyone else involved in this administration. To God be the glory, I'm only a vessel." I love that. That's awesome. So that's what Mr. Corey Willis said about the whole situation. He's pretty stoked about it. I'm sure he doesn't want to give too many details, and I'd love to get him on the channel. That'd be pretty cool, kind of reading through some of this. But he's saying that there is hope, especially for some of you guys that are out there in the industry that are in the trenches of it all. If you want to do your own research, you guys can have at it, but it's public information. You can go on the EPA's website and look this up. Specifically, this one is to Mr. Corey Willis himself, but this is year 2022. He signed this decree from the EPA, and it's listing a lot of his diesel truck parts that he sells on his website. Just kind of going through some of this: EGR bypass kit, 07.5 to 16 Dodge Cummins 07 to 09 Flow Pro, 5-inch exhaust, EGR deletes, a lot of Dodge Cummins, a lot of Power Stroke, a lot of Duramax stuff. Now, I didn't read through everything, but kind of what I took from this is he can't sell any of this stuff unless it has a EO carb certification number on it. A lot of big names in the diesel industry have went back and forth with carb, with the EPA, and have tried to prove to them that diesel engines can burn cleaner with tuning. Unfortunately, they don't want to see it. And if you're on the opposing side, if you're not following the left's agenda, they're going to get you. And unfortunately, this is a perfect example of how they did. And I'll tell you what, they really have lined their pockets. The corruption was there. I'm not saying the corruption isn't there anymore, but we're all super excited to see how all of this is going to play out, how all of this is going to turn out. But what does this mean? I'm going to go back to that big speech back in March 15th, I believe. He talked about deregulating. He also talked about the federal government should be giving power back to the states to make their own emissions requirements. So California, you guys can make your own rules, but you can't impose them on Texas. You can't impose them on Michigan. You can't bully small American companies anymore. I personally think that there's going to be something big that's going to come out of this. I'm also seeing that if they're going to give the power back to the states to make their own emissions laws, that there's going to be certain states that, like diesel shops, that are going to be able to do certain things, like install aftermarket parts again, like tune vehicles. I mean, we're not blind. This stuff is already going on. It's happening. It's been happening for many years, but it's going to be more lax. It's going to be more lenient. I'm not trying to say that it's going to be completely legal, but a lot of these small American companies are not going to be pushed over anymore. And with this investigation going on and who's going to be exposed, I really think that after all of this is completely done and the dust is settled, that American businesses will thrive. And not to mention, we can go back to 2007 at least. We can start tuning our trucks again. This is a big deal. One thing that I've learned about my social media platform, certain words that I say in my videos like God, the word God, or especially Jesus, that's a big one. Donald Trump. I'm going to say all these words. I'm going to post them on YouTube. I haven't really seen a big effect lately. It's pretty interesting. I know it's all politically driven and I know it's a big old huge agenda, but in the past I've actually seen my channel targeted, demonetized. I've actually been demonetized. As a matter of fact, I was contemplating quitting YouTube altogether because of this. Now, I'm not trying to compare my story to PPEI, but what I'm saying is this was a very real thing. And look, I understand it's all part of the script. I get it, but I'm really excited to see how things are going in the script right now. I'm excited to see how all of this is sort of unfolding. So it's looking pretty good for us. So that's all I have to say about that. What does this mean for diesel tuners? I think they're coming back soon. I think they're coming back within the year. What does this mean for vehicle parts manufacturers? I see a big uptick. I see our economy getting back to normal again. I don't want to say normal because we've never really been back to normal, especially within the last 20 years. I'm going to call it right now, and I'm hoping that I'm right. So I'm just going to call it right now. I think that we're going to see big changes by the end of this year. I want you to let me know in the comments what you guys think about the letter. If there's something that I missed, this is a lot to talk about. I know I skipped a ton of stuff. I got to get to the meat and potatoes of this video, and I think I delivered that the best way that I could in the short amount of time that I have. But this is pretty exciting. Also, what do you think about my prediction? Do you think that diesel tuners are never going to thrive? I think they are. I really do. After all of this, I really think they are. But only time will tell, right? So I'm done talking about that. Man, that was a lot of talking. Let me go ahead and fill you guys in with what's going on with the LBZ Duramax. This thing is so sweet. Actually, I just came back from Moreland, Indiana. My buddy Dylan just relocated to a different shop down the road from him. And we installed a piping kit on the last video if you want to check it out. HSP diesel piping kit. See the glitter in there? Looks pretty cool. It's called Thunder Kiss. It's a prismatic powder coating option, and we offer these on the website. We also installed some traction bars. It almost looks chrome. It looks really good. I love the color option. It kind of like contrasts the pewter slash silver, GM silver kind of grayish color. We've been talking about whoever wins this truck, where they live kind of determines whether or not I'm going to be shipping the truck to them. Either I'm going to be flying them here so they can drive the truck home, or if they live close, like Florida, I mean this side of the country, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, like the whole Midwestern area, I guess, all the way down to the south. I have no problem taking this truck down to you guys if you're the winner. But if you live in California, Nevada, Washington, I'm just gonna ship the vehicle to you. I'm not having it, man. It's just last time I did this, my emissions, and I think you guys may have watched that video, clogged up on me on my L5P Duramax, pulling a gooseneck through the Colorado Rockies, drove it all the way to Nevada. Actually, I think it was closer to, yeah, it was closer to California. It was pretty far. Gosh, I think it was like a 32-hour drive for me. And yeah, my DPF plugged up on me. Yay, emissions. It was crazy. But man, I want to say those days are behind us. Anyways, I'm done talking. I'm done ranting. I'm going to say stay tuned. And you guys know what I'm talking about when I say stay tuned. But I appreciate your time as always. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. I'm going to keep you guys posted, keep you guys updated on what's going on. New news, new content every week. Also building trucks. Thank you so much. Have a good day. We'll see you on the next one. Stay tuned.